Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Stronger Scars podcast. Today is a special episode. I'm joined with my husband, Nick, and it's Valentine's Day. This is going out on Monday, February 14th, the day of love. And I thought what better way to celebrate than have Nick on and talk about something I always preach, but never really talk about and give you guys substantial ideas to how to be a supportive person, supportive friend to someone who's going through something hard, whether that be their injury, mental health, whatever it may be. So Nick and I are going to just kind of talk about ways you can support people that you love. Before we get into that, Nick's going to give you guys our quote of the day.
Before that, I'm gonna say hi because Bailey said my name and then kind of just skipped by me. But it's been a few months at least since I've been on the show, so very excited. We got a good topic, I think, to talk about. But my quote of the day is God's plan for your life far exceeds the circumstances of your day. And I think this is important because it just kind of shows the looking into the future, kind of just not looking past the struggles of each day-to-day kind of thing, and just seeing God's plan for your life as it unfolds in the grand scheme of things. And I think it's easy to get caught up in little annoyances and things that happen every hour or so and things that grab at your attention, but just understanding that where you are in your life is exactly where you should be, and just making the most of that, and seeing the long picture. So with that, that's the quote of the day. We'll send it back to Bailey.
Yeah, so like I said, we just want to talk about, how to support someone who you really care for, but you don't know how to support them. You don't want to kind of overstep. And I think there were moments in our relationship where we had to support one another. There were days I was having a bad day, Nick would support me. There were days that he was having a bad day and I would have to support him. And we kind of wrote up some notes that we think are important. So
I just want to say too, like, we were not perfect at this by any means from the get-go. We've been together for years now, and we've kind of, like I said, grown in what we've done and how we've supported one another. But it takes a while to become, I don't know, a good supporter of someone if you're just getting to know them. Like, I don't know, it's a lot of things that go into it, just understanding what works well, what doesn't, just how each person reacts to different things and responds.
And obviously we're married and we're in a relationship of love, and that doesn't always have to be the circumstance for supporting someone. It can be a friend that you care about, a teammate, just some random person that you think may really need someone that day. So all of these things, although it may be in our situation, us talking about each other, or I know there are some of these that we related back to instances with our friends at school, but that doesn't mean that just stops with the people you personally know and care about. Like, just, be a good human. I think this is one of the points we talk about, but it's not expensive to be nice to someone. It doesn't take a lot of time out of your day. Just be nice. Just sometimes going out of your way, holding the door for someone, smiling at someone. I was telling Nick, like, when I would have a bad day and I would go and order Subway or whatever, and the person making my food was just asking me how I was doing and smiling at me, and not just, kind of going about their day, that would completely 180 change how I was feeling, just because it showed someone was acknowledging me and caring about me. But first and foremost, this is very easy to do, but ask them how they're doing. And this is so big because I think this also allows you to see how they're going to react to you, showing support. But just say, hey, how are you doing today? Like, they can either say I'm good and it ends there, but it shows that you just asked them, or they're going to just really open up to you and you're going to see that they needed that from somebody.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like, it's an easy thing to do that sometimes I find myself, it's like almost a formality. Like, it doesn't actually mean how you're doing. It's like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
like if I say what's going on, I'm not actually asking all the time what you're doing. It's just like acknowledging that you see someone. That's it. Like it's just in passing. But it's like, how is this affect? Like there's a difference between how's it going and like how are you doing in where you're at right now. And I think that making the distinction between what you're trying to say is also important, but also don't. This is something we want to talk about later, but just don't be like too heavy with it. Don't be like, oh, how are you doing? Tell me everything type of thing. But just how are you doing? Like, I care about you. I want to know, how can I help you?
Yeah, I think, looking back on my experience of people asking me, I talked on here before about like how I kind of wear everything on my face and like you would know if I'm upset. So a lot of times someone would say, "How are you doing?" And I'd be like, "Fine." And then they would look at me and say, "How are you really doing?" And that went a far way, knowing that they genuinely cared and they weren't like Nick saying, just doing a formality thing. So that sometimes can go a really far way. And like we said, it's easy. You see someone, just ask them how they're doing if you know that they maybe were going through something.
I think this kind of leads into the next point we want to talk about. Like, if someone really doesn't want to tell you, don't force that on them, because maybe they're not comfortable with you and that's nothing personal, or maybe they just don't know how to describe the way that they're feeling. They never felt that way before. They never dealt with it on their own, or however whatever is going on, and just being okay with someone not wanting to talk about every detail of their life with you. Because sometimes if it's something that's really bothering them, and just maybe just doing something else is the most you can do, like not drawing attention to that, just being like, hey, let's go get something to eat, or let's go walk around here, or go whatever, like that type of thing, I think can go a really long ways as well, just as much if not more than really sitting down with someone and asking them to kind of walk you through what's bothering them and what's upsetting them.
Yeah, I think I say this all the time, but I really want to reiterate that here is if they don't want to talk, just say, "I'm here. I'm here if you want to talk in the
Yeah, like
future."
yeah, if anything, like just check in on them, but don't be like, oh, they don't want to talk to me, I have nothing to do with them,
Right.
like sorry for offering my
Don't take
help.
it
Yeah,
personally, and don't be selfish. Like,
yeah,
if you're genuinely caring and genuinely asking about someone, it's not about you at that point. It's about the well-being of somebody else. So
yeah.
if they don't want to talk, it's not something that's wrong with you. Don't be selfish and take it that
Yeah,
way.
and this is another thing we had talked about, was like, misery loves company. It's an age old saying, but if I know when I'm having a crappy day, I don't want to, like, if I'm maybe say something that's gonna be negative to someone else, not necessarily attacking them, but just say like, oh man, this really sucks. Like we got to do this and this and this today. Oh, it's just terrible. But I'm not trying to bring them down because I don't like that person. It's just that's the spot that I was in, and that's the way I responded to it. So not taking that personally, but just understanding that misery really does love company, and that's a natural way to handle those type of things.
I do want to highlight though with that, I think one of the situations we find ourselves in a lot is, let's take for example like playing time. So if someone's not getting a lot of playing time and that's really affecting them, they're obviously going to come to a practice or a game with a negative attitude. And it's easy when someone's complaining to be like, "Yeah, I agree, like the coach, isn't doing his job or whatever." And I think that a true leader and strong person has to navigate how to say no to that person. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah,
you said, like you can't reinforce the negativity. And I think that in the long run, that's helping the person struggling, because
yeah,
when you're enabling them to be upset and get down on themselves and be negative, you're not helping them in the long run. And I think especially with my situation, a lot of times when I was negative, I had people confirming that
Mhm.
negativity.
I think that's a really important point, because I think that's like a lot of people run into that sort of situation where you just want a friend that's gonna, or you think you want a friend that's gonna
You
say
think, yep,
what you want to hear, like, oh, your situation sucks, like you deserve better, like you should get more playing time. This coach sucks. You're not getting the looks that you need, and all this stuff. And maybe it might be true, but that's not helping, that's just going to build up that spite that you have in you for your situation. And you need someone that's like, it's important to understand, like, to say, yeah, maybe you're not getting what you deserve, but you sitting here and wallowing in your sorrows is not going to help that in any way.
Right.
You just need to understand your worth and your value, and the stuff that you bring to the table, and you just use that within yourself to come up and to rise to that challenge, or to get out of that place that you're in. Because I mean, I think especially in sports, like at a high level, you're there for a reason. It's not like you just got there by accident. If you're not getting the playing time, you're not performing as well as you want to in practice, not because you can't do it. It's just because, I mean, you might not be doing it at that point in time, but you had that potential. You had the ability to be an asset to the team. It's just, if you're not going to get that affirmation from your coach, you need to find that within yourself, and you need to know that you've gotten there for a reason, and your abilities are good enough to perform. And so that's an important thing to realize, I think.
Yeah, and I think, it's kind of funny. We're doing good because we're literally, I didn't even mean to bring that up, but our number 4 was to not allow them to sulk and things. And like,
Yeah.
a good friend isn't going to tell you what you want, just what you want to hear. I
Mhm.
think,
A good friend is going to listen to you, though. It's not like
right,
you're going to, I'm going to sit with someone, or they're going to sit with me, and I'm going to say, oh, I don't like doing this. I don't know what I'm doing. They're just say, yeah, you should do it. Or they're going to listen. They're not going to cut me off, and they're going to hear me out, but they're also going to encourage me. And I would hope to encourage someone else too, to find other avenues
right.
or ways that they can help themselves, or that I can help
But
them.
you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, I love to give tangible examples just because when you're listening, I hate when I'm watching something or listening to someone and someone's like telling you how to do something, but then they don't show you. I learn by
Hmm.
showing. So I kind of want to do like a quick little mock example of this because I think this is one of the things I honestly think is what I went through the most during my injury was when I was having a bad day. No one told me to look at it differently. No one
Yeah.
told me that that's not the way. They just, like I said, enabled it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be the person complaining, and
Okay.
let's see how Nick would act.
Yeah.
And I'm not your wife. I'm a friend on the
Okay.
team. We're teammates.
Okay.
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 Okay. I deserve to play. I know I'm better than these girls who are getting to play, and the coach isn't giving me a chance. I just got back from my injury. I've been working my ass off, and I know I deserve this. And I just don't know why these girls who aren't as good as me are getting playing time.
So I would say that. I mean, this is tough.
I know what I would say.
What would you say?
I and there's actually, I'm obviously not gonna name names. I actually remember a situation like this that someone came to me and said this, and I think the way to respond is, one, you obviously know that they're working hard. If you know what an injury is like, you know how hard it is to come back from that. So I think you acknowledge their effort and you say,
Here's I just thought something that I'd say,
okay,
like I agree with you. I know that you are working your very hardest, and there are people that maybe are getting more attention and more playing time, whatever, that I think that you have more potential than, that you are better than. But I think you need to, like, you had your time, you were injured, you did your rehab, and you were took a little bit, but you're back from that. That's not you anymore. You need to let go of that whole I was injured, I'm on the comeback thing. Like, you are a player on this team now.
right,
If you keep holding on to that, that's just going to be a little block in your mind. You're going to, every time that you don't make it
you're gonna blame
on
it
that
on them.
starting 11, you're going to be like, oh, what if I was
Injured.
injured? So you need to get that out of your mind. Like, you are on this team not because you're injured and you rehab and all this stuff. You're on this team because you're a good enough player. Like I was saying earlier,
Right.
and you need to let go of that. Like, you learned from it, you grew from it a lot more than a lot of these people that are playing. You appreciate it more. Let that appreciation for your sport and that drive to just get better and to get back to where you were, let that fuel you to get to where you want to be.
It's about drive. It's about
That's what I was really thinking when I said that.
yeah, I agree. And I think kind of what I was saying is injury rehab, like we both know, if you're listening, you may know, like it's hard. And nothing fueled me up more than when someone acknowledged that they knew how hard my rehab
Yeah.
was. So I think that's always a good place to start. Like, hey, look, we are healthy and we're playing, but we know how hard you were working to get back to this point.
Yeah.
And the rest is going to come with hard work. And I think that's always a really appropriate way to approach it. And
Mhm.
like Nick said, like one of those stigmas that we don't want as an injured athlete is that we're always going to be the injured athlete. I've talked about this till I'm blue in the
Mhm.
face. So if you're that person who is hurt and coming back, release
Yeah.
that title from yourself and truly embrace that, you may be starting from the bottom. You may not be the best player at that time and point, but you're not hurt anymore.
That's something that I wish I would have done a better job of looking back on it. Is just like you said, releasing that, not erasing it from your memory, but
No,
not
never.
holding on to it
Right.
as you're going forward, being like, oh, well, I can't play to my best because I've been hurt. And maybe you have to adapt a little bit, but
Hmm.
you still have that ability, that potential that you had the whole
Right.
time. It's just you got to get over that I was hurt type of mentality.
Willow agrees. um, well, I like this one. I'm a very, as you guys know, philosophical person, but trust that people who love you are looking out for you and are genuine. I think this is something that can get lost because when you're in high level athletics, like it is easy to get caught up in me, and you kind
Hmm.
of you always want to be the victim, and you think that your friends may be out to get you if you're not playing, and they are, and all those things. And you have to truly you have to truly believe that those people who care about you and you spend your time with genuinely care about you. And
Hmm.
you also have to be genuine. If you're the supporter, not the person getting the support, you have to be genuine. And not everyone's a genuine person, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think you might find, unfortunately, too, some people that you thought were your loving, supporting friends maybe aren't as much as you had hoped. Um, just like just being not just going to anyone and being like, I need help. Will you affirm my just will you just give me support and affirmation in this journey that I'm on, and being a little bit selective and careful with where you're taking those questions and these conversations, because you might find that not everyone is as genuine as you thought, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it is.
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, I'm sure most people know this. Like, not everyone in your life is going to be your closest friend. Not everyone in your life is going to be someone that you look to for support. But at the end of the day, when you're away from your family, you're making new friends, you're meeting your significant others, like, you have to have faith that those people care about you. And if you never take that leap of faith, and I know a lot of times, and obviously everything we're talking about is based around like mental health and injuries, but I know a lot of times it's easy to bottle it in and feel as if you're the only one who truly cares about yourself. But I know that from personal experience that the second that you let go and you let people in, that's when you truly like get better. I know that's kind of dramatic, but we're human beings. Like we thrive off of human connection and relationships. And we can't do hard things alone. At the end of the day, you're not going to get through the hardest days of your life alone. And just having genuine connections with people and building friendships, building relationships with people you love and leaning on them. And, I think that first step of initiating that relationship where you can really trust someone is really important. So
we're
I just
not we're not
encourage you
put in this
guys.
world to go through things alone. We've been given a lot of support and just friends and people that you meet along the way. That I mean, there are a lot of people in the world that you see and you're like, oh, what? Like, I never want to talk. But there are
Mhm.
also a lot of people that you'll find like you connect with on a lot of different levels, and that's for a reason. I think those people are given to us as shoulders to lean on in times, and also to reciprocate that when someone else needs something too. And I know something we were wanting to talk about yesterday was sympathy versus empathy. So just kind of understanding when to use both. And so sympathy, I'm going to read this from Google. Sympathy involves understanding someone from your own perspective. Empathy involves putting yourself in the other person's shoes and understanding why they may have these particular feelings. So, I don't know, sympathy is like if I'm the star player and I'm watching this person struggle and they're not getting any playing time, they're just not breaking into any of the coaches kind of starting 11, anything like that, and I'm just like, okay, like, sorry, man, it sucks. It's unfortunate. Just keep doing your thing. Like, you'll get there soon enough, but not just kind of keeping my own position in the back of my mind, be like, I don't really gain anything from this person reaching their potential and starting. They might even take my spot, but I'm just gonna look at it from this point of view that I'm at the top of my game. Like, sorry, that sucks. Just keep at it. But empathy is more like, yeah, I've been there before. I was that person my freshman year, 2 years ago, whatever. And this is how I got to where I am now. Like, I see you're in a very similar situation. It's like relating versus observing type,
Mhm.
I think, is a good way to describe it. And I think it's important to know when to do both because you don't want to compare two situations that aren't the same in terms of empathy. So if someone's suffering because of some family drama issues at home or something like that, not relating that to something that you had that's not at the same caliber and make kind of belittling their situation. Um, I don't know. I just think that empathy can be seen as better usually, but don't force it
Yeah.
if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think that that was a great way of putting it. And I think too, like you don't always have to sympathize or empathize. Sometimes just say, like I said earlier, I'm here for you. If you
Yeah.
want to talk, I literally would just be a sounding board for you. I don't need to respond. I don't need to give my 2 cents. If you just want someone to talk to, I'm here for you. And I was thinking while you were saying that there have been a lot of instances where the people who I feel the most free to talk to, I'm not even that close with. Like sometimes there's just
Hmm.
that person who is
Yeah.
on your team or just in your circle. You don't really talk to them, but one day they asked you how you were doing and they showed compassion for you and they
Yeah.
asked, and those were the people who I would talk to the
And
most.
and it's easy. It's easier to like go to those people because they may observe kind of you on day-to-day basis, but they don't know
Right.
everything about you, and you don't share all these experiences and just like that sort of friendship with. But it's nice to know that they can see
Mhm.
still like you're being noticed in that regard, and they can maybe give you some sort of insight that isn't, they're not going to react to what you say based on all
Mhm.
this, like, they're not one of your close bros or something
Right.
like that. Like, they're not gonna just laugh it off or whatever, but they're gonna genuinely, like, you opening up to them might catch that person a little bit surprised, but in a good way, because then they're gonna be like, okay, like, I can share my experiences with this person because they actually want my help.
Yeah, I think that's another piece of advice I want to give you guys if you're listening. Like, if you know there's someone who may have gone through something and you're not extremely close with them, that doesn't mean you can't ask them about it. I think if anything, maybe take the leap and actually go out of your way to ask them about it because sometimes it's really nice when someone from the outside um, goes out of their way to talk to someone. So if you're someone who's listening to this and you're thinking in the back of your head, oh, like Jolene, I don't know, is I noticed that she's been looking a little upset, but I'm not that close with her. Like, take a leap of faith, text her, ask if she wants to get coffee, or just text her and see how she's doing. Um, but I think that just because you may not seem the closest with someone doesn't mean you can't reach out to them and see how they're doing.
Mhm.
So this one I'm gonna let Nick touch on just because I try not to divide like male and females and how to approach things, but there's definitely different
I
ways
mean,
to do
yeah,
things.
there absolutely are, and so this is something that maybe pertains a little bit more to like guys' perspective, just like bros and homies and stuff like that. That maybe girls don't quite get into that, but it's like if someone is going through something and you can tell from a guy perspective, I wouldn't always feel the most comfortable if I was the one going through something, just like almost venting to someone,
Mhm.
especially just, I don't know, you kind of, you don't want to overload someone and seem like you're complaining, you're being soft and something like that. So if you can tell someone's going through things, maybe just like be like, yo, let's go to the dining hall and just like get their mind off something, get their mind off it by changing their scenery, getting them moving, just getting them to do something that maybe you know that they have a hobby or they have a video game or they have a spot that they like to go to or they have something that they like to do that maybe they don't have someone that does that with them or it's been a while since they did that. And just make something up, do something with them, but doesn't always have to be so heavy like we're gonna go do a therapy session at the dining hall. Just be like, oh, what's up? Like, and I said earlier, say what's going on, like not I sometimes just say it in passing, like it's just like a hey, how's like hey,
Yeah.
that's the type of thing, but doesn't always have to be especially at first, like you don't need to make a huge impact. You don't need to show this person that
Right.
you're trying to counsel them. You got all this life advice, and I think that that's I don't know. We have some experience in this, but we're not experts on it. These are just things that I when I try to answer some of these questions a lot of the time, what I like to do is put myself in the shoes of someone who wants advice or who needs help and say, what would I like if someone did this to me, if someone approached me in this way, would I think that they're genuine or would I think that they're just kind of trying to be an upstanding citizen? And
Mhm.
just there's a lot of different dynamics to it, but just like having someone take an interest in something that's interesting to you is, I think, for me, one of the best feelings for guys. Especially, I'm sure it's similar for girls, but like if I'm really interested in something and maybe people don't know all that much about it or they're not as into it too, but then if someone starts to show me that they're like that's interesting to them or they're at least putting effort in, that's like that's such a great feeling to have is like sharing those sorts of connections. And so I think, yeah, just like doesn't always have to be as deep as, oh, what's bothering you, why, how can I be involved in all this stuff, and just starting off from the base of I care about you and I care about the things that you care about too, and I want to help you, but I'm not going to just dive right into it right away, full send it, because sometimes it's a little bit overstepping or just it's a little bit of a gray area. So I think for guys especially, that's something that I thought was important to talk about.
Yeah, and what we have wrote down is you don't have to approach it in a therapeutic
Uh-huh.
way.
And I
Just
think I
spend quality time
yeah.
with them.
And I do think that I'm guilty of this too. And like don't so like I don't want to talk to someone that's just talking to me because I'm a charity case. Like
Right.
because I've had all these bad things. I didn't even like things that happened to me were like I just hurt and it sucked, but it wasn't like there are people that are going through a lot more than that.
Pain
And
is pain.
yes, but I mean, like in
I
terms
know.
of the weight of their
Right.
situation is a lot heavier, and not just talking with them in a way that like is so gentle and
Mhm.
careful that you don't want to, because it's just going to come across as you're just only in it because it's the right thing to do, and maybe it is the right thing to do, so you should do it, but also you care about this person, you want to help, but you don't have to be like approach it like a counselor, like, oh, how are you feeling?
Mhm.
Why are you feeling this way? Stuff like that. But just like treating them like they're your normal friend. And then on top of that, you want to help them because
Right.
that's, I think that's a way that's really, really impactful to someone.
Yeah, I think this is a good bridge. I want to talk a little bit about how to support someone when they want to like reach out to more resources. Um, because it can be really awkward. I know like in our situations with sports psychologists, sometimes it's awkward to tell other people that you're seeing someone and that it could be really helpful for them too.
Hmm.
But I think that this is one of the easiest and most effective ways to support someone is to let them know that you had an experience seeing somebody and it helped you, and show them how to get in touch with those resources and you just open the door for them. I think sometimes it's one thing to just say go see a sports psych or go go see a counselor. But to open up to someone and show them that you care enough to let them know that you're seeing them and
Mhm.
that it's helped you and you think it would be beneficial for them, I think that is one of the most effective things
And
you
I
can
think
do.
that's empathy right there, is being
Right.
like, I see you in this situation. This is kind of how I handled mine, and it was really helpful to me. Like, I'm not telling you you need to see someone because I think you need to see someone, but I'm telling you
I
maybe
saw,
yeah,
yeah.
I was in a situation like this, and this is what I decided to do. I think it could help you.
Yeah, and I think with that, with reaching out to resources aside, um, I think it's important to share what you went through to someone that you want to help.
Hmm.
And I think there's a proper way to do this. The way that you don't want to do this is making it all about you.
Hmm.
You need to approach it, or what I've found to be helpful for me is approaching it in a way of, this is what happened to me. And I think that you can relate, or hearing this will help you, feel empowered or feel better. I don't, I hate it when people, and people have done this to me before, when they come to me when I'm struggling, and I think it's in the genuineness of their heart, but instead of like asking me how I'm doing, it's all about them. And I think that there's like I said, there's a fine line, and it's, having that ability, like Nick said, to have empathy, and there's power in sharing stories. That's
Hmm.
what this whole podcast is about. Like, I, more than anyone, believe that there's strength in sharing your story. But when you know someone is actively struggling with something, you have to approach it to them in a way that's like, this is what I went through, and it hearing this can help you because.
And just sharing feelings, like big experiences like that, just makes somebody feel a little more
Right.
comfortable also, but also shows them that like you actually, like, the way that they're feeling isn't just because there's something wrong with them or they're messed up. It's, you had a similar experience and you felt the same way. Like, it's okay
Yep.
to be in that state,
Hmm.
and then also show like, I'm doing good now. Like,
Hmm.
it's not your current, like, if you have something happen to you and it makes a big impact on you mentally, physically, whatever, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
Right.
You can still overcome that. That doesn't become a defining just characteristic of you. But things happen and people react to them. Like, that's a normal way to handle that. So
Right.
how did you get from that maybe lower point in your life to overcoming that and to being in a position to give someone else some very meaningful advice?
I think that kind of hit exactly the way that I tried to be a good teammate and leader my last 2 years, last year and a half of being on the team at Notre Dame was, I I mean, you guys know, if you've listened, I'm gonna do an update in my story because I feel like a lot's happened since the last time I talked. But um, I was able to lead by example to people. I went through 4 surgeries, didn't quit, and still tried to show up every day with a smile on my face. I was able to be an example to people. And when someone was going through an injury and felt like they didn't belong or wanted to quit, I could say, look, like, I know what you're going through, and I'm here and I'm thriving.
Mhm.
And I think that was, a very effective way. I know I became friends with a lot of people who went through injuries and were able to relate and feel a little bit empowered by the fact that I went through it too and didn't give up.
And this definitely, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about extends beyond athletics too.
Right, of
Like,
course.
it's a talking about a lot of sports stuff here, but it bleeds into your personal life, and the same way personal life things bleed into your athletic career. And so I think, especially for me, being at different places in my life and maybe having times where I'm struggling with what I stand for, what I believe in, and relationships and things like that, and being kind of in a rough spot, and then coming out of that as I got older, learn more and more mature, and then being able to, not that I know everything and I'm the perfect example, I'm far from that, but I want to help someone that I see is maybe struggling in those kinds of areas and going through something similar to why I might have gone through. Mm.
Yeah, I think you just touched on something very important. You said you're not an expert on it. And I think, that's so important to highlight because we don't have to be perfect in order to help people. You don't
Mhm.
have to have it all figured out in order to help people. Like I said, the first thing I wanted to talk about was just ask them how they're doing. Like, you don't have to be an expert at talking to say that to someone. You don't have to have all these accolades and be the perfect person through for going through hard things. Like, just be a good person. Ask them how they're doing. Like, you don't have to be anything other than yourself to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important to say because people go to school for years and years to study this kind of stuff, and they're not. I wouldn't say they're experts on it. You would maybe trust them a little bit differently, a little bit more, but also, I mean, you got experiences; those are valuable things that maybe someone who is 8 years tenured in the field doesn't have, and you can and just relate to a friend on a different level than a complete stranger. So I think the last thing, one of the things that we had kind of discussed when we were brainstorming yesterday was like understanding a person's relationship with their parents, I think is
Mhm.
very important. And I think for myself, I'm very fortunate to have the support and the love and the care from my family and my parents especially that I did, and just my not only my sports but also my schooling, my relationships, my friendships. I always felt like I could call my parents if I needed anything at all and just get advice, and they would be praying for me and just stuff like that. But I'm very lucky for that. But some people don't have that, and just maybe understanding if they're not talking through things with their parents, that maybe they just it would be helpful if you talk to them about
Mhm.
stuff, or if you just encourage them maybe to bring it up with their family, or whether it's because they're afraid to disappoint their families, or they won't react well, or they don't know how, but just like maybe that's a good place to start, and don't overstep boundaries and stuff like that. But if you're good friends, I think that they might be a little surprised that you're asking them about that, but they also would maybe appreciate it too. If you it's tough because families are very, very, very important thing, and very impactful on your just your life and the way you handle the things that come your way. But just looking at, yeah, how someone's relationship with their parents is could impact how they're handling what's been given to them.
I think too, in today's world, a lot of times mental health is a very recent thing, and sometimes parents aren't on board right away and they don't understand it. It's not that they don't want to support their kids, it's just they don't understand it. It's not
Yeah.
something that they ever talked about. So, you know, being the same age as someone and understanding what they could be going through and just being there for them, I think that's a really, really helpful way to
Mm,
be there for someone who's going through a mental health struggle.
yeah.
But I think that's all we have. We wanted to keep this short and sweet because, at the end of the day, um, it's it's a really special thing when you get to help somebody and when you get to be somebody's support system. Um, and with Valentine's Day, I just thought this would be a really cute, simple episode to just chat with Nick about. Have you guys listen and hopefully, you know, take something from this. I think if you take anything, just it's free to be a good human and literally just, you know, ask someone how they're doing. Like, I challenge you guys, ask a stranger how they're doing today. Ask somebody who you're friends with how they're doing today. A lot of times we get caught up in our own lives and we're worried about how we're doing today, but worry about how someone else is doing today. Valentine's Day, I know a lot of people say it's a made up holiday, but like it's all about love and caring for somebody. And yeah, I challenge you guys that like reach out to someone. Maybe it's a friend you haven't talked to in a few years. Ask them how they're doing. Maybe it's your husband. Ask him how he's really doing. And like let's spread love. And I have been so fortunate this past year, um, obviously with Nick and getting married, but also with just kind of coming to grips with finding myself and learning how to be a good friend and finding my true friends for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of that stems from how I've been able to be supportive and be a good listener.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you summarized it very well. I think that, yeah, it's easy to pass judgment, to be angry in your own situation sometimes, and but be strong in who you are and what you stand for and the things that you know to be true, and just spread that love that you have for other people, and a genuine caringness. That's not a word. Just a genuine care for others, and wanting to help and to make an impact and to better someone's, not just their day but their life, and
Mhm.
so that they can in turn do the same for other people down the line. I think that's very important.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I know Nick is still in my thunder. He's like the philosophical one now. So maybe we'll get him on here a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Start costing you.
but yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. The podcast, I hope that you guys view this as a place to, one, obviously hear people's stories, but two, I'm obviously not an expert, but I would like to think that the experiences I went through and the things that I've learned can help somebody who may be in a similar situation. So yeah, thank you guys so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Happy Valentine's Day.